Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Nurin Binti Zakaria and I am from SMK GUNUNG RAPAT. Today, I will be sharing with all of you a New York's best-selling book entitled The Hate You Give that was written by Angie Thomas. This book was published by Walter Books Limited in 2018 and it has 437 pages. Without further ado, let's dive right in, shall we? The story begins with Star Carter, a 16-year-old girl who lives in a predominantly white neighborhood of Garden Heights. And what makes Star Carter different from any other teenage girls is that at the age of 16, she was the only witness to a fatal shooting of her own childhood friend Khalil. The book provides a thorough and detailed narration of what the situation took place, which obliquely allows me to visualize it better. The tragic incident happened when Khalil and Star were driving back home, and suddenly a police officer asked them to stop the car at the side of the road because of Khalil's failure to give signal for a lane change. The police officer asked Khalil to exit his car, stand still, and put his hands on the roof of his car. He then went back to his car to check on Khalil's ID. Khalil reached out to console Star who was inside the car. But then, shots were fired. Khalil died. The police officer did not only shoot Khalil once, but thrice. He was so sure that Khalil was reaching out for his gun, but he was petrified after he realized his assumption was wrong and he had actually killed a 16-year-old boy. The case then was taken to the grand jury. The police officer did not get sentenced to death, nor served time in prison. Instead, he got an administrative leave for killing an innocent person. The black community was enraged when they heard the news, so they held a protest to show solidarity and justice for Khalil. The story ends with Star standing up to Haley, her best friend, who made racist comments towards Khalil's death. She promises to keep Khalil's memory alive and to continue her advocacy against injustice. If you ever ask me what would be my favorite part in the book, it would be the part where a kid held a gun to protect his father from being shot at during the protest. I personally like that part because it definitely portrays and explains precisely of what the title of the book meant, The Hate You Give. The cycle of hatred the African Americans have faced over the years led to that exact part in the book. Children, especially at a very young age, find violence as the only solution for the discrimination we face. Reading this book reminds me of another book that fell under the same category of oppression. Although it is not as heavily depicted as The Hate You Give, it is the famous trilogy, The Hunger Games, which generally tells the story of a rebellion led by the protagonist against the dictatorship she and her community have lived under. And within this book too, violence and discrimination are told, showing similarities within the themes present with The Hate You Give. These books that expose discrimination and violence and also oppression are definitely my top recommendations for students my age to be fully engrossed with such matters. Not to mention that these things are actually happening in real life too. For example, campaigns for Black Lives Matter, Asian Lives Matter, discrimination towards Muslims, and other protests we are not aware of, all of them still exist until today. Going back, one of the most prominent life lessons I've learned from reading these books is that you should never discriminate people for their appearances, disabilities, and especially skin color. Aside from that, we should definitely practice acts of kindness towards everyone without being biased over any certain criteria, because that single act might be considered as trivial, but is actually indeed powerful. One's kindness can save a life too, especially during these turbulent times where Everyone is struggling day and night. Let it be from trying to make ends meet or trying to stay tranquil with the unbearable online classes. Such unjust act and discrimination towards anyone is definitely unnecessary. That's all for me. Thank you so much for lending me your ears. Goodbye.